sounds itself, which is a very, very big chiddush. I mean, the idea that there's nobody blowing the shofar is quite odd. And the language of the maimed is even odder, because how did I explain Yitaka to you? Yitaka means that the Yid's neshama wakes up by itself without any Yisraelis from the outside. Remember that? Yes. Now, does the Rebbe call that Asrusa Latata or Asrusa Deliela? When a Yid's neshama, a Yid is so deep in Golos, that the darkness of the Golos is so painful to him, that he's woken up to do tshuva to return to Hashem. Remember, there's two kinds of Golos. There's a Golos of suffering, and there's a Golos of wealth. And in both cases, a Yid is so aroused to return to the Eibishter that he's arousing himself without no Chabad house, no tefillin, all by himself. Which means that the pain has to be so incredibly deep that a Yid is being aroused to go towards good, to run away from where he is, to go to the Eibishter without any outside influence. Is that called Eserusa Latata, or is that called Eserusa Deliela? Okay, go to page Hey. Go to page Hey. Go to page Hey.
It's not.
Read the last words of the first paragraph. Beli isarusa letata klau. So let me ask you the question again. Now, girls, I'm fighting with you. I'm being a pain in the neck, okay? Because I want you to appreciate what's going on. The Rebbe said explicitly, or they say in Yeshivish, befedish, that it's no arousal from below. So I'm going to ask you the question again. When a Yid is so deeply in pain that he or she does tshuva without any outside influence, is that Isrusa Latata or is that Isrusa Deliela?
No.
According to the Maimed, it sounds like it's Isrusa Deliela, does it not? Beli Isrusa Latata means pure Isrusa Deliela. I'm sorry, what did you say?
There's nothing Deliela about it.
Also, why does the Rebbe say Beli Isrusa Latata?
Because it's without service at all.
Beli Isrusa Latata.
The pain is the thing that wakes him up.
Okay.
And the pain is coming from Hashem.
The pain is coming from the Eibishter. Wow. Okay, we usually blame it on the world, no? The pain is not the Hisaydus. The pain is triggering the Hisaydus. The pain is... Because the answer to this question is that the Rebbe calls your Yechida Isrusa Deliela.
Oh, yeah?
Yes!
Oh, okay.
So I actually told this to you, but it's important to repeat. When you wake up your neshama all by yourself, that's the ultimate Isrusa Latata. The greatest arousal from below that could be is if you do it all by yourself. But if it comes from your nefesh, or your ruach, or your neshama, or your chaya, we'll call it Esrusa Latata, you're waking yourself up. But when it comes from your pintalayid, even though it's yours, right, the way I like to teach Yechidus, Hashem broke off a piece of himself, and he put it into you, and now it's you. He broke off another piece of himself and put it into her, and now it's her. Now that piece of Eibishter, which is you, is Russell Latat, Russell Latat. Atzma saying tough. The Eibishter Klayach took a chelik of himself. Chelik elakam imal. But you know how it works by the Eibishter. You know how it works, right? When you break an essence into half, what do you have? Two essence. When you break an essence to 1,000,000 pieces, how many essence? What do you have? 1,000,000 essence. Each one is the whole thing. Etzem, kishad, teifes, bechelke. There's no such thing as a piece of an essence. Chelik elakam imal mamish means a piece of the Eibishter, but a piece of the Eibishter is the whole Eibishter. It's called the chelik for various Kabbalistic reasons, but a piece of etzem is etzem. And it's yours. It's yours. So he calls it Belias Arusad Letato because in you it's Eloh. But for lack of words, the Eibush is not involved. Hashem is not involved at all, except as this young lady pointed out correctly by providing the pain. He provides the trigger. But the arousal is yours. So this Maimed plays with us. The language of this Maimed is, to use a classic high school expression, is confusing. But it's actually correct. It's not confusing because I'm not paying attention and I'm on my phone. It's confusing because even when I'm paying attention, it's confusing. We are calling the revelation of our Yechida by itself Beli isarusad latata klal. It's as if there's no arousal from below. But the whole thing is below. It's all you. But it's the God in you. That's the chap. It's the Eibishter in you. So it's the ultimate isarusad latata. That's why the pasuk says, Yitaka. The shofar is sounding itself. The Eibishter is not blowing the shofar. The Chabad rabbi, the kiruv worker, is not sounding the shofar. You're sounding your own shofar. If a yid does tshuva by him or herself, when he sounds his or her own shofar, that's beli isarusa de latata klal. It's beli isarusa de klal. You're talking about the chida. That's how it is. You know the story with the Hasofer family? It's a mamish of a sugar and a ma'aseh. They ran away from God. The Hasofers were both academics, professors. They lived in Israel. They were big tziyonim. And they ran away from Israel. They hated, they were very big into Zionism when Israel was formed. They saw the politics and the schmutz. They didn't like it. They ran off. How could you run away from God? The Yena ben Amit, they tried it, huh? They went to the farthest place in the world. They went not to Australia. They went to New Zealand. And they raised their kids without any God. No religion, nothing. Atheists. But the kids went to public school. And when it came the season, lyhadus, by the Goyim, everyone had a tree. And they were visited by, what's his name? Fetid Claus. And they wanted to know why there was no tree, and most importantly, why there were no gifts under the tree. So basically how the story goes, the father says to the son, Moshe, there's only one God, and we don't believe in him. There's no three gods, there's one God. So the kid made his father crazy that he wanted. Anyway, so the father decided to find out if there's any Yiddishkeit in Australia. There were a group of Jews living there who would get together in a house and they would do Jewish stuff. He was the only one who knew Hebrew. So they made him the rabbi. He said, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. He says, that's fine as long as you can read Hebrew. You don't have to believe it. You just got to lead the services. Cross your fingers and say the words. The end of the story was that this father and this son sat down on the Shabbos afternoon and they davened to the Eibishter. That if the Eibishter exists, and if Moshe Rabbeinu is real, he should send them Moshe Rabbeinu to answer the questions that they had. You're listening to the story?
Yeah.
The next day, Chaim Gutnick showed up. Boom, he's there, plop. He got a telegram from the Rebbe to immediately go to New Zealand. That was what the instructions were. He got in a plane, flew to New Zealand, went out of the airport, and he bumped into the Hasofers. And he was a big man. He gave him a big bear hug, and he brought him to his house. He started hugging him and kissing him. It took 25 years for the story to come together. Many, many years later, Rabbi Gutnick's daughter was talking to one of Rabbi Mr. Hasofer's daughters, and said, it was the weirdest thing. My father, out of the blue, got a telegram from the Rebbe to go to New Zealand. Then he went to New Zealand, and he met a Yid who gave him a big bear hug. And the other girl says, that was my father. And that the day before, him and his older sister, her older brother, had sat down and said, if there is a God, and there is Moshe Rabbeinu, he should come to answer our questions. Now, I'm asking you, is that a Esrusa de Latato or Esrusa de Leila? The story is nuts. The part of the story with the Rebbe is moidendik, yeah? But that's not the part of the story that's nuts. The part of the story, a Jew runs away from God, like Yene ben Amitai, Mi Hashemu Bereach. He runs away from God. He runs as far as he can possibly go. And his kid is triggered by the tree, Yotzmach tree, you understand? And then they join a Jewish community. And he becomes the rabbi because he speaks Hebrew. He doesn't believe in God. And then he prays, if there is a God, and there is a Moshe Rabbeinu, like it says in the Chumash, Moshe Rabbeinu should come and answer the questions. The next day, Rabbi Gutnick showed up. The next day. Huh? So I'm asking you a question. Is this Latata or is this Liela? Answer the question. Don't be afraid. That's pure Latata. Who triggered Mr. Hasofer and Mr. Hasofer Jr. to daven? What triggered them to daven? So it's a funny thing.
But you just said that the Yechid.
Good. That's the point.
So how is this?
So it becomes a question of language. The idea we get.
Below, but the above that is below.
It's the above within the below. When your Yechida is triggered by itself, it's the ultimate Isrusa de Latata. But the Maimer calls it Beli Isrusa de Latata. It's important to appreciate the irony of the language because the concepts of this Maimer are not hard. They're just unusual. You know what I'm saying? It's not so hard to learn this Maimed. But the Rebbe is describing a Yid doing tshuva without any trigger from outside of himself. And the Rebbe, by the way, this expression on page A, Beli Iserus Latata Klau, is from the middle of the Rebbe. I don't think the Rebbe wrote this expression. If you look in footnote 23, it says Befedish, Keinu Aloshem, Beli Iserus Latata Klau Ba'teres Reishom B'tchilas HaPerek U'B'Seifei. You see footnote 23? You see footnote 23? Yeah. Why do you think the Rebbe tells you that what I wrote is a quote from Ateres Reish? Why is he writing that? Because the Rebbe appreciates the irony of the expression. A person has the maximum Esrusat Latata. I awoke in myself, nobody helped me. And the Mittel Rebbe calls it Beli Esrusat Latata. So the Rebbe puts it footnote 23. That's how the Mittel Rebbe phrases it. And the Rebbe phrases it precisely as the Mittel Rebbe. I'm pointing this out because I want you to see the chap of the Maimed. The shofar sounds itself is that you are God. The answer is it's the God in you. So it's the God in you, you God are you. It's you, but it's the God in you. It's the Esrusat Latata within the Esrusat Li'ela within the Esrusat Latata of a person. We're good? Yeah? I need to observe, I'm not criticizing. I talked about this already. It's worth repeating because it is a little bit, what's the right word? It's provocative.
You didn't focus on this.
I think I did. Maybe I didn't. I think I pointed it out. I'm happy I'm reviewing it. It's very important to notice this. That's all it is. It's an observation. Because the Rebbe himself is pointing out, footnote 23 is the Rebbe saying, this is a funny way of saying it, but I'm going to say it this way because that's what my great-great-great-grandfather did, and I'm going to follow his lead. That's how the middle Rebbe phrased it, and that's how the Rebbe quotes it. Okay? Now get back to us. What's our question? Our question is, if the shofar of Mashiach blows itself, how could you compare it to Rosh Hashanah? If the shofar of Mashiach sounds itself, how could you compare it to a Jew who's in a narrow situation? Usually there's a trigger from the outside. This is the question that I was going to ask. And I have to be honest with you, I don't understand the answer. I know the answer, but I don't understand it. So I'm going to be teaching you something that I don't understand. You'll probably explain it to me after we finish, okay? But I need you to appreciate the question. Okay, we're on page Ches. We're on page Ches of the Maimeh. We're in some place in Perek Zayin. And the Maimed is discussing a Yid doing tshuva all by himself because the darkness is so burdensome, right? The min ha-meitzad is so deep that he cries out all by himself, and in the language of the pasuk it's called Yitaka. The shofar sounds itself. And the middle, the Rebbe calls it Beli Iserusad Latata Klal. It's purely from the Yechidish of Nefesh. So, but the Rebbe Marash compares it to Rosh Hashanah. On Rosh Hashanah we blow shofar. That's the question. Does anybody wish to comment?
I don't understand the question.
You don't understand the question? The question is, if a Yid does tshuva all by himself, yes?
Yeah.
Is anybody helping him? No. So how do we compare it to Rosh Hashanah? On Rosh Hashanah we blow shofar.
But nobody helps us on Rosh Hashanah too. Like we do tshuva on Rosh Hashanah also.
The Chazan gets up and shul and blows shofar, and you're there, and you're awakened. That's somebody else blowing shofar. If you're out in the boondocks, if you're all by yourself, there's not a Jew for 1,000 miles, and you blow the shofar of your own neshama, that's a little different than Rosh Hashanah.
In Mashiach, each one of us is going to blow the shofar.
Okay, it's a great answer. It's a good answer.
That's the question.
No, the question is, how do we compare? I don't speak French. You understand Hebrew?
No, it's fine.
No, it's important. You're important. This is important. I'll repeat it again.
But my question is, at Mashiach, are we gonna? If each one of us is gonna blow the shofar?
There's not going to be a shofar. The shofar is going to be the Jew. Yeah, each one of us is going to blow a shofar, but not a horn. The shofar of our neshama, and that shofar of our neshama is called shofar gadol. The big shofar. You with me?
Yeah.
I have time. Don't ever say it doesn't matter. It matters. You matter. You matter. Everybody matters. Okay, so we have the question clear. Yeah? Let's learn it. I'm going to do this quick. Zayin we did already, so I'm going to do this quickly, okay? Vihine. Based on the Maimer we learned earlier, Mehadrush Dadmur Maharash, the Maimer of the Rebbe Maharash, who says, Shamez of the Shefer, the narrowness of the Shefer, who in is the same idea as Shono Sherosha B'Tchilasa, a year that's poor in the beginning. Now, girls, does anybody remember what is the meaning of poor in the beginning? We make ourselves poor. Girls, did you all hear what she said? Rasha doesn't mean it's poor naturally. We make ourselves poor. That's a serusa latata, don't you think? Yes?
Yes.
The inyan Rasha b'tchilasahu, the meaning of poor in the beginning is sheyisrael oisim atzman Rashan. But as Roshana comes, we make ourselves poor, and that poverty, which is really an act of bittul, is creating the sound of the shofar and the wealth which is going to come later. Says the Heilige Rebbe move on. What does that tell us? The inyan hametzah, that the idea of narrowness, of pain, which you cry out when it's narrow, you scream, and that screaming. We good? You need help? Don't be afraid of me. I only bark. Page Ches, second paragraph, third line. The inyan hametzah, the concept of the narrowness, through which the breath comes later. When the narrowness comes from me, I am bittling me. So if I am bittling me, is it happening by itself or is it happening because of me? That's the kasha. A person's avodah may be very great. No matter how great his avodah is, he still has bittul. Bittul you can't translate into English. Anybody who tries to translate the word bittul into English is mevatel the whole bittul. I've been doing this for 30 years. The word bittul is a beautiful word. When you translate it to English, it becomes an angry word. It becomes a very destructive word. So I always say that if you look up the newest edition of the Oxford Dictionary, the English translation for bittul is bittul. Bittul means I put aside my place, and I put the Eibishter in my will. My ego, I put aside. I put the Eibishter's ego where my ego is. Says the Rebbe, one has bittul, who margish, he or she feels, through nimtza b'meitza, they're in a narrow place. When a person is mevatel himself, when a person pours himself, as a verb, makes himself poor, mevatels himself, he cries out, and that's how he gets rich. Says the Rebbe, gam ayedei meitza zehu amshachas hamercha. Even though I'm bittling myself, I'm bittling me. It's not happening by itself. I am bittling me. But the bittul that I bring upon myself brings the breath that happens later. Says the Rebbe Marash compares this to the Shefer of Mashiach. The Rebbe Marash compares this to the Shefer of Mashiach. The same is true of the sounding of the great Shefer, which happens when Mashiach comes. You're listening? It's woken up and it's drawn down. From the narrowness of oivdim, those who are lost in the golus of wealth. I'm sorry. Those who are crushed in the golus of poverty. Says the Rebbe, the Gam, so Yid in golus is doing well. He learns and he davens and he's a righteous Jew. One contemplates they didn't save compared to the Reimus of the Eibishter. Now the English translation of the Reimus is exaltedness. The meaning of the word exaltedness in Hebrew is the Reimus. That's the best I got. Compared to how great the Eibishter is, Gam ha'avodah, even though a Yid is serving Hashem in a true way, lechet yechoshev is like a sin. Not because we're doing anything wrong, because it'll always be better. Which is why a Yid serves Hashem. He's Chassidish, he's whatever. CHK, Jew exclusively. He's very religious. Still, the person feels himself as if he's pushed away in the goals of Chassidus and crushed in the goals of Aniyus. That because of his sense of crushedness, of poverty, of bittul, he wakes up, and he brings down Hagili, the revelation of the Shefer Gadol, of the great Shefer. Now the Rebbe is asking a question. although it's not written as a question, written as an observation. The question is, what we just described is the exact opposite of Yitaka. When Rosh Hashanah comes that we're mevatel ourselves, we did that by itself. When Mashiach comes, take it from Yad Mamish today, yeah? And the Yidden are decided to do tshuva because they're bottled, they're mevatel themselves, and they're doing that. It's not happening by itself. And the Rebbe sees that as a problem. And it makes sense. The Maimish started with this idea of Yitaka, that a Yid does tshuva because he's so far away without any Yisraelis. Then the Rebbe Marash compares that Yitaka to Rosh Hashanah, when we befedish on mevatel ourselves before we blow shofar. So the Rebbe says, which is it? Is the cry of tshuva of Mashiach coming from a Yid without any premeditation? Or in the language of the Maimon, B'liyas erusad latata klal? Or the cry of tshuva that a Yid has when Mashiach comes based on the fact that he's mevatel himself? Does everybody understand the question? Yeah, that was a very silent affirmation. Imagine you're given a window seat by the emergency exit on an airplane, and the lady comes by and says, "Are you ready, willing, and able to assist opening the doors in case of emergency?" And you nod, and she says, "No one ever sat in the emergency row, right? I pay for extra legroom when I fly." Nobody knows what I'm talking about? Yeah. I need verbal confirmation, so I'm going to say it again. I need verbal confirmation. Do you understand the question? No verbal confirmation. He's a simon that no one knows what I'm talking about. So we got a problem. I can't hear you. But on the airplane, they don't buy that. You have to have verbal confirmation. Tell it to the stewardess. What? It's Aramaic. I can't explain it. Okay, so you might as well say it. Okay, are we good?
We're good.
Good, Baruch Hashem. V'yesh loim, and now comes the answer. And honestly, I don't understand the answer. But you'll tell me what it means, okay? Shagam os, that even in a case, Kishaham Shachas Agil the Shefer Godel, here they bittel shaloi, to quote this young lady over here, when Mashiach comes, we're all going to go, every Yid is about the Shefer Godel. Even Yidden who are from, in the second before Mashiach comes, who learn Torah, do mitzvahs, and they correct their midas, they're good people. And Mashiach comes, they're going to cry, the Shefer Godel of Mashiach. How? By saying my whole avodah compared to Mashiach is nothing. Rasha b'tchilasa, you're going to be mevatel yourself. And mevatel yourself is absolutely isarusad l'tato. Says the Rebbe, Shayich loshen yitaka. You can still call it the shofar sounding itself. Tov bekometz. Yitaka ma'as, but the shofar is sounding itself. Even though, if you are mevatel yourself, and because of this bittul you do tshuva, that's called isarusad l'tato, classically. Says the Rebbe, we're going to call beli isarusad l'tato klal, that's the pintel yid waking itself up, as if there's no outside influence. Why? Because it's bittul. Let's read. When a person makes himself poor and impoverished, the inyan ha'ani hu, the meaning of a poor person is she'ein le mishel atzmei klon, that he has no positive characteristics at all. He has no attributes whatsoever. He's so poor that literally everything he has is tzedakah. He gets it from other people. He has nothing of his own. So then, says the Heilige Rebbe, even though he knows he's poor, moreover, he's triggering it. He's telling himself, I am poor, so that he can do tshuva and cry out on Rosh Hashanah. He's telling him he's poor, so he can do tshuva and cry out when the Mashiach is revealed by his galus, take him at mamish. The shefer gadol that he's blowing, it's still considered, quote, beli isarus l'tata klal. Why? He recognizes and he feels. That the fact that he's doing something, and in this case, what is he doing? He's bittling himself. He's bringing down the cry of the shofar and everything that follows. Says the Rebbe, it's not because of his greatness. Parenthesis. He has the power to bring on the great shofar of Mashiach. Elo mitzad chesed HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's Hashem's kindness. Yitaka me'asme, the shofar is blowing itself. Now look at the next words, girls. Look at the next words, okay? Uki'ilu shahamshacha hibali isarusad latata kla. See those words? Right? The last 4 words you recognize, correct? The last 4 words are verbatim from page A that I showed you, correct? Now, bali isarusad latata kla means what? That Hashem's not helping you at all.
But then it said.
B'li serusat latata.
No, it said,
Wait. If Hashem is not helping you, it's by yourself. But that's called the serusat l'yeh because it's coming from your bintel l'yid. When you're mavatal yourself, when you bittel yourself, even though you're doing the bittel, but because the bittel means I'm nothing, the cry of the shofar isn't mine; it's the neshamas. Uki'ilu, it's as if sham shachahi, what you're bringing down is beli is arus of latata klal without a arousal from below at all. Now I'm not going to ask you if you understand. I'm just going to ask you if you heard the words, because I don't understand. The Rebbe says when a yid is bottled like a poor person, it doesn't mean that he has been mevatel himself. It means he's nothing. And because this means he's nothing, what he then has a seder as tshuva, that his seder as tshuva, which comes straight from his yachid, is belias rusel latata. So let's do it this way, okay? Does anybody want to speak first? I got something to say, okay? And I got 15 minutes to say it, which is wonderful. It's actually timed correctly today. Does anybody want to say anything? And I mean it. I'm waiting. Don't be afraid.
So our question was, are we arousing ourselves, or is it, how is it?
The question is, if I'm from the minute before Mashiach comes, and I do tshuva,
The question was, we're making ourselves bittul.
Correct.
But now it's saying that it's not coming from ourselves?
That's correct.
So how is that the answer?
So the answer is because when you make yourself bittul, you don't feel like you did anything. You feel like you're nothing.
Oh, because it's the bittul.
Yeah. When you feel like you're nothing, you didn't make yourself into nothing. You're nothing. No, but that's actually a meradik. That's a circle. It's a game. So I want to tell you a story, and then I want to share with you a vort. Okay? Now I'm making this up. In other words, I'm making up the corollary. This is a very funny answer. You know, the whole chap is Mashiach comes, we do tshuva without any premeditation, and then you do tshuva without premeditation by meditating on bittul. That seems like an irony. It seems like a contradiction. It's a paradox. Okay, so let me tell you a story. Now, it could be I already told you the story because I tell the story often. If I did, tell me, and I'll go through it quickly, okay? The Tzemach Tzedek was a gigantic Rebbe. During the Tzemach Tzedek's Nesias, the language that we use historically is, he had 1 million chassidim. 1 million, with 6 zeros. But you have to understand what that means. Of that 1 million, most of them he never saw. Because only the elite chassidim came to Lubavitch. The rest of the chassidim would write letters. That was the minhag in those days, okay?
He actually had 1 million?
That's what half of Russian Jewry were Chabad. That means they davened in Schari, they davened in Lubavitcher Shuls, they went to Teira in Chassidus, they went to Melava Malkus, they forbade this Kislev, okay? But the average Lubavitcher Chassid, I told this to you before, my grandfather, who I knew, I asked him many times, I used to ask him the same questions over and over again because I was hoping that one day he'll give me a different answer, and he never did. I asked my Zayda, my father's father, was his father a Lubavitcher? He said, yeah. He said, how far back? I asked him, how far back? Till the Alter Rebbe. My family chassidim till the Alter Rebbe. So I asked my Zayda, was your father ever in Lubavitch? And did he see the Rebbe? And he told me no. And I couldn't understand it.
Wait, Zayda's father?
Zayda's father. Your Zayda's Zayda, your grandfather's grandfather. And b'shum ofen, you couldn't explain it to me. B'shum ofen. Because I couldn't understand the shtetl. In Russia, people have no money. Nobody traveled. You were born in the shtetl, you grew up in the shtetl, you got married in the shtetl, you died in the shtetl, you buried in the shtetl, finished. Who left the shtetl? Machers, Rabbonim, Mashpiyim, Malamdim, Gvirim, Shochtim, the big 5. In the Chassidish Shekil, the big 5 were the Rav, the Sheikh, the Malamed, the Mashpiyah, and the Gvir. That means the rich guy. Now, so Lubavitch was a place where really special chassidim came. And there was no more special occasion of the Lubavitch than Shavuos. Because the Rabbonim cannot travel Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, they can't travel Sukkot, they certainly can't travel Pesach, because the communities need them. They're Rabbonim. Shavuos is only one real shaila. Are you allowed to make your fleishika oven milchik to make cheesecake? It's a real shaila. And the halacha is you're not allowed to make milchiks, the fleishiks, and the milchiks. You're not allowed to do it because you're going to forget. But once a year you're allowed. That's the din. You could kasha your oven to have cheesecake, and then you kasha it again to eat flesh, but you can't do it every other day. You know what I'm saying? This is the only shaila. So Shavuos in Lubavitch was called Chag HaMatzos, not Pesach, like says a Chumash. Everything in Lubavitch is upside down. Shavuos in Lubavitch was Chag HaMatzos. Matzos is an abbreviation for Mem Tzadik, Meir Tzedek. Means Rabbonim. Some of the Rabbonim who were Lubavitch Chassidim were the biggest Rabbonim in all of Russia. They were big Talmidei Chacham. Some of them were Goinim Adirim. And they all came to Lubavitch. So Lubavitch, Shavuos was a sight to behold. It was special. The greatest Rabbonim came to the Rebbe, and there was it was Machabed the Rebbe, and the Rebbe was Machabed them. One of the things, so over the course of Shavuos, it's a Tzedek could say Chassidus 4 times. You know, Erev Shavuos, the night of Shavuos, the first day, the second day. It was packed. It was 2 or 3 days of Yom Tov. It was packed with Giloyim. One of the things that used to happen by the Tzemach Tzedek Shavuos was that he made what was called a nigla tish, a table for discussing nigla, not Chassidus. The nigla tish was the milchika meal on the first day Shavuos. Okay, the Tzemach Tzedek ate milchiks and fleishiks. He didn't eat pizza the first day Shavuos. You know what I'm saying? He was old fashioned. He never followed the Shulchan Aruch that on Yom Tov he's supposed to eat meat. He didn't get the memo that it's okay not to eat meat because it's cool to eat cheese. 6 different types of cheesecake and 14 different types of blintzes and 17 different types of pizza. He was old fashioned. It says in Allah you have to eat meat on Yom Tov. He ate meat on Yom Tov. So the milchik kamil he didn't wash. He made kiddush, ate mezenis. And all the Rabbanim were invited. The whole meal was under an hour, 50 minutes. They would all come in. The Rebbe made kiddush. Everybody sat down. They ate a piece of cake. And the Tzemach Tzedek used to speak Inyan and Nigla. This was the Seder. So imagine the scene. Some of the biggest Rabbonim in Russia are sitting at the same table with the Tzemach Tzedek and they're eating lunch. They're eating milchiks. And the Tzemach Tzedek is speaking. Tzemach Tzedek takes a glass and he puts mashke into the glass. But on the table there were like 20 different kinds of mashkois. You know, there was different kinds of wine. There was obviously vodka and whiskey and bourbon and sherry and liqueur. There was different kinds of mashkes that were not meant to go together. You know, there were the worst shit that possible. He filled up a glass with all these different kinds of mashkes. It was noxious. It was a terrible drink. It was a terrible, terrible drink because he mixed all different kinds of mashkes, and it was also very strong. It had a very high alcohol content. Now everybody watches that Tzemach Tzedek fill this cup. You listening? Anyway, when he finishes filling the cup, he turns to one of his sons and says, "Here, drink it." And the guy says, "Tata, I watched what you just did. A human being cannot drink that." So he took it from one son, he gave it to another son, and said, "Here, drink it." Anyway, the Tzemach Tzedek went around the table offering everybody this cup of mashke. No one wanted to touch it. At the back of the room, in the corner of the table, was sitting a famous chassid. He was a chassid from the middle of Rebbe still. His name was Reb Nota from Malastitsnia. Reb Nota was a Rav and a chassid with a big brain, but he was bottled like a shmata. If you would step on him, he wouldn't say ow. His bittul was not normal. His bittul like the kind of bittul we're describing here. So after that, Tzemach Tzedek offered this noxious drink to 3 of his sons and to a few of the elder chassidim. He says in Yiddish, "Gittis Nota. Nota is ayin. Ayin is neisei hafchi." You understand Yiddish? Anybody understand Yiddish? Nobody. What a pity. You understand Yiddish, no? Give it to Nota. Nota is ayin. What does ayin mean? Girls, ayin is Hebrew. Yesh me ayin? Nothing. Give it to Nota. Nota is ayin. Ayin can tolerate contradictions. So they sent it down to Nota. Said the Rebbe said to drink it. If the drink it, he knocked the whole thing down. He probably was sick for the next 3 days, but he drank it. So afterwards, someone said, "Did Nota's gehert?" The Rebbe said that you're ayin. It's a big compliment. The Rebbe should say about a chassid that he's nothing. And your whole life you work towards nothing, you know what I'm saying? And every day you're trying to become nothing, you're becoming a bigger something. So Tzedek said about Reb Notala as ayin. It's an ultimate compliment. So someone said, the Rebbe, you heard what the Rebbe said about you? The Rebbe said about you that you're ayin. In other words, the Rebbe gave you a compliment. You know what his reaction was? Yo gornished, obetake gornished. That Yiddish, you understood it also not. He says, you're right, I'm nothing, but I'm actually nothing. Meaning, it's not a compliment, it's a shmate. You're garnished, or betake garnished. In other words, if you're garnished as an epis, if you're nothing as a something, then this doesn't work. But if garnished is take garnished, if bittul means that in my mind, I'm not a big nothing, I'm nothing, then there's no contradiction between the ayin and the yitaka. That's what the Rebbe is trying to say. In other words, bittul can be bittul where you achieve the madrega of bittul. And bittul could be where you achieve the madrega of garnished. Take garnished. A mamish nothing. And if you're take garnished, you didn't do it. You just discovered that you're nothing. And the seminary happened by itself. That's what the Rebbe is trying to say in the Maimon. When you become bottle, yeah? You know the story. You know the story. A guy dates a girl. I don't know if you know what dating is. I don't know if you know what guys are, I don't know what girls are, but there's such a thing called guys and girls and dating. Anyway, the girl's the best girl in her class, and she's a wonderful girl. She's bright, and she's talented, and she's kind, and she has midos tovos, and she also has good self-esteem. All the contradictions exist in her together because she's ayin. Anyway, this bocher is full of himself. He's a lamdan, and he knows a lot of chassidus, and he's a mamish machon. Anyway, he dates this girl, and he says that this is not for me. Say, why? Well, she's a wonderful girl, but I mean, I need something better. I know who I am. I'm a big lamdan. They get him a second girl. He dates the second girl, and the same thing. Anyway, no one's good enough for him because he in his own mind he's next to Moses or next to God. He's like incredible. So they send him off. They give him a 3-month course in anova, in humility. He's humble. Anyway, he goes to this yeshiva. They teach him humility. He gets a certificate that now he's officially humble. He comes back, and the shadchan offers him a shidduch. He says, I don't understand. I dated this girl already. So the shadchan says, yeah, but now you're humble. He says, ma doch, when I didn't have the ma'ala laniva, that I was just a big Talmud Chacham, and I was a big Yidei Shamayim, and I knew a lot of chassidus. She wasn't enough for me. Now that I'm humble also, she's for sure not enough for me. You get it? That's not pshat in the Maimon. Pshat in the Maimon is takegarnished. If a person is takegarnished, then their bittul is not a contradiction to the yitaka. I just want to finish with a vart, okay? You have for sure heard this in your careers in Beis Rivka. Did you ever hear the vart about an onav and a shafal? Moshe Rabbeinu is called humble, remember? There's 2 words for humble, onav and shafal. What's in onav and a shafal? Moshe Rabbeinu is called an onav. He's not called a shafal. What does that mean? Moshe Rabbeinu knew that he was the smartest person alive. Moshe Rabbeinu knew he had the biggest neshama alive. Moshe Rabbeinu knew he was the most perfect human being alive. But Moshe Rabbeinu said, if somebody else would have my milas, they would be better than me. Correct? Yeah. That's called an onav. What's a shafal? A shafal means low self-esteem. A shafal means I'm a shmata. I look at myself. I don't say I know my milas, but I have no milas. We don't consider shafal a positive thing. Onav is a positive thing. Shafal is a negative thing. Why? A person who tells himself he's a doormat, people are going to step on him. It's not chassidus. It's a lack of confidence. You with me? Yeah. The pshat of this maimed is shafal, not onav. That's the tenets. The reason a person can be mevatel himself, and yet when he cries out, it's called yitaka, is because he's poshet shafal. He's garnished. You got it? Yeah? Shafal is bittul in a way which is not healthy. Because I have no other husband. I have to explain the Maimon to you. And I don't understand it myself. I think that the story with the Rebbe qualified by this insight into Shiflus may explain it.
It doesn't seem like Shafal. It seems like Anna.
It can't be.
Rebbe was a Shafal. He wasn't an Anav.
No.
The stories are not normal. They're not normal stories. You know, the Tzemach Tzedek came out of his room one night here, And there were guys sitting and learning in the Beis Medrash. He says, listen, if anybody walks to the Beis Medrash and wants to sleep, kick him out. Kick him out. Don't let him sleep in Beis Medrash. Guys used to walk for weeks to come to Labadik. They walked. You came pretty tired. Yeah, you lay down on a bench. Tzemach Tzedek says, anybody comes into the Beis Medrash, don't let him sleep in Beis Medrash. Except for Nata. You listening? Except for Nata. Anyway, Nata shows up. He's exhausted. He lays down on a bench. The guys go wake him up and say, are you Nata? Are you Nata? He says, no. So they said, the Rebbe said he can't sleep in the throw him out of Beis Medrash. He says, why can't I sleep here? The Rebbe said, nobody can sleep except for Nata. The guy's name was Nata. Why didn't you say it? They threw him out. Later in the morning, the Chevra who kicked him out, they got a lesson. The Tzemach Tzedek wasn't doing this to be spiteful. Tzemach Tzedek was doing to be madach in the light. They should know what bittul means. They asked him straight. The Rebbe said, the only Nata can sleep in Beis Medrash. Me, I mean, for sure it doesn't mean me. It must be another Nata. Me, I'm a Nata. I'm a nothing. I'm not a Nata. You know what I'm saying? So they threw him out. They physically threw him out of Beis Medrash. He slept on the steps. And in the morning, he said, why is he sleeping outside? Well, the Rebbe says, nobody can sleep except for Nata. But this is Nata. So, okay, so in philosophy it doesn't work. In psychology it doesn't work. But you get the point. Tzemach Tzedek says a person can be so bottled, the Rebbe says a person can be bottled, that the bittul isn't even his. Then it's Yitok. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're right. Maybe I shouldn't use the word shofar. But even if I'm wrong, you understand the pshat and the maimer. In other words, even if I'm saying something which is not precise, but it brings out what the Rebbe is trying to say. When a person is bottled to the extent that he's taka garnished, then his bittul isn't even his either. And then he's talking about Shefa Gadol by itself. Questions or comments?
It's very high level.
Yes, it is.